Once upon a time, there was a sweet little girl loved by everyone, especially her grandmother, who adored her so much that she once gave her a red velvet cap. It suited her so well that she wore it all the time, earning her the name Little Red Riding Hood. One day, her mother asked her to take a piece of cake and a bottle of wine to her sick grandmother, who lived in a cottage deep in the woods. She warned Little Red Riding Hood to stay on the path, walk carefully, and not to dawdle. As she entered the woods, a wolf approached her. Little Red Riding Hood, unaware of how dangerous wolves could be, wasn't afraid. The wolf asked where she was going, and she innocently replied, "To my grandmother's house," explaining what she was carrying and describing exactly where her grandmother lived. The wolf, hungry and cunning, thought to himself that both the girl and her grandmother would make a delicious meal. He decided to get there first. The wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house, knocked on the door, and disguised his voice as Little Red Riding Hood. Thinking it was her granddaughter, the grandmother told him to come in. The wolf burst in, devoured the grandmother, dressed in her clothes, and lay in her bed to wait for Little Red Riding Hood. Meanwhile, Little Red Riding Hood got distracted in the woods, picking flowers for her grandmother. When she finally arrived, she found the door open and felt uneasy. She stepped inside, called out to her grandmother, but got no response. Approaching the bed, she noticed her grandmother looked strange. She said, "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have!" "The better to hear you with, my dear," replied the wolf. "And what big eyes you have!" "The better to see you with." "What big hands you have!" "The better to hug you with." "But grandmother, what a big mouth you have!" "The better to eat you with." The wolf then sprang out of bed and swallowed Little Red Riding Hood whole. Satisfied, the wolf lay back in bed and fell into a deep sleep, snoring loudly. A huntsman passing by heard the loud snoring and decided to check on the grandmother. When he entered, he found the wolf sleeping in her bed. Realizing what had happened, he took a pair of scissors and cut open the wolf's belly. Out sprang Little Red Riding Hood, alive and well, followed by her grandmother. To make sure the wolf wouldn't harm anyone again, they filled his stomach with heavy stones. When the wolf woke up, he tried to run away but collapsed and died from the weight of the stones. The huntsman skinned the wolf and took his pelt as a trophy. Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother celebrated their safety, and the grandmother enjoyed the cake and wine, feeling much better. Little Red Riding Hood vowed to always follow her mother's advice and never stray from the path again. In a later encounter, another wolf tried to trick Little Red Riding Hood, but she was wiser this time. She stayed on the path, went straight to her grandmother's house, and told her about the wolf. Together, they prepared a trap by filling a trough with sausage water. The wolf, tempted by the smell, leaned too far and fell into the trough, drowning. From then on, no wolf ever dared to bother Little Red Riding Hood again.